I'm ABC 15 education reporter Elenee Dow, and here is Chris Kline, the CEO of the Arizona Media Association. And we are here today to talk about a roundtable or a town hall that's about to come up, an education one. Can you talk a little bit about what people should expect from this?
Yeah, first and foremost, it's a new type of town hall. I don't think we've ever done something quite like this in the state of Arizona. We have brought together 16 experts to talk about all the different facets of education life, from early childhood to K-12 to post-secondary, meaning college, and then I'm partial to the fourth segment, which is all about the future of education and the AI integration. And what's first of its kind about the effort is not just that we have 16 panelists, but that this is a town hall that is airing all across Arizona, not just in partnership with ABC 15, but in partnership with other television stations, radio stations, newspapers, digital startups here in Phoenix and across the state. Because as we all know, living in Arizona, education is one of those things that is foundational to life. And whenever you look at national rankings of where Arizona tends to fall in the state of education test scores, unfortunately, we're regularly near the bottom. And so part of the goal of this town hall is to break down what's working, talk about what's not working, and in a political neutral zone, have a conversation about what parents, what students can perhaps learn and take advantage of that our state offers to improve the system for all of us.
So I know you talked a little bit about why you chose education. I report on a lot about education. I know we're at the bottom. Everyone knows that. Why was this the specific issue that you guys wanted to tackle first in this format?
Yeah, because education leads to all other things in life, whether it's with our economy, whether it's with personal financial success and happiness. It felt like the topic that you have to address before you move to anything else. Because if we don't have that foundation, that education piece, that learning piece, nothing else grows. And so what was really fascinating, I'll tell you, is we started digging into this was the thinking that, okay, maybe this is just about K-12 or maybe it's just about college. But the more we talk to experts, the more we realize that this is truly a cross-generational challenge and need. It starts not long after you're born, and parents have to think about childcare and whether that childcare is just childcare or whether it's early education. And early education costs money, just as childcare does. So that turned into a conversation about how do families afford to get their young children educated in some type of capacity, not just put in childcare. And then it turns into the conversation about kindergarten and fourth grade reading levels and eighth grade math. And then before you know it, we started a conversation about what does life look like after high school? Because it's not a one size fits all approach anymore. I think a lot of us think, okay, I'm either going to go get a job or I'm going to go to college. But there are a lot of other opportunities that we talk about in this town hall, whether it's with community colleges, whether through high school, it's through a career and technical education. There are things called CTE programs integrated into high schools across the state now, where you can learn crafts as you are going through school and sometimes even jump into a job straight out of high school, regardless of whether you choose to go to college or not. Affordability at college, as we know, is something that is also incredibly challenging and difficult to navigate. And so we dug into conversations with State Board of Regents. Those are the people that oversee the university system, to talk a little bit about how that world also plays out. And then bringing us to that fourth topic I mentioned off the top, we spent a lot of time talking about what the future of education looks like, because you don't have to be 22 or young and younger to be thinking about what education you might need going forward. AI is disrupting everything. Many of us have already felt it in our careers. It will continue, based on what the panelists that we talked to suggested, affect us all. And there may be a need for re-education and for some of us to relook at what career paths look like 10 or 15 or 20 years from now, based upon the changes that are going to happen just over the next couple of years.
Yeah. And I know that there will be a lot of changes because of all the technology and AI as well. Can we go a little bit into the panelists
Yeah.
who are on this town hall? Why did you choose them specifically? Who are they?
So we did not want to bring in a bunch of politicians with intention to talk. We all hear them on a regular basis, and not that they don't have incredible influence and obviously power to help improve our education system, but we wanted to have the type of conversation with people that were actively leading our system down in the trenches on a regular basis, to have a very solutions focused conversation that tried to stay out of the partisan politics. So we invited school superintendents. We invited, as I mentioned, members of the Board of Regents that oversee the university system. We invited men and women that lead programs that help with funding for things like Head Start, that from an early childhood education standpoint, make it affordable for 1 to 3 year olds to get early access to some fundamental education. And there was intention to also bring a lot of diverse voices so that we didn't have all of the same groups of people talking. We wanted to be able to have somebody talking about Head Start next to somebody that could speak about the future of education and AI next to a superintendent of a school district that was struggling to recruit teachers, because they all came to this discussion with incredibly different perspectives, which made the conversation a lot more fun to have, because instead of hearing the same thing over and over again, we heard a lot of different ideas and potentially a lot of different solutions. And if nothing else, a lot of scene setting, so that my hope is when someone watches this, they walk away feeling like they're a little better armed with information to navigate the complexity that is education.
And education, as we mentioned a little bit before, for Arizona, we've been at the bottom for so long. Why do this now?
Because there's no time like the present to dig into a complicated issue that we can't seem to solve. We are lucky in the local media community to have a growing culture of collaboration over the past few years. And so a couple of years ago, I don't know if we would have been able to build a town hall and create and solicit the buy-in from so many different media partners to participate in and air it. We might have gotten one brand to join in the chorus, or a couple, but in 2025, we have a coalition of 100 plus media brands that are partnering to distribute and air and talk about this town hall. And in a world where all of us consume media in so many fragmented ways, we don't tend to all gravitate around one or two television channels or one newspaper or one website anymore, because we all have our own ways of consuming content. It feels like this is the type of event that perhaps allows us to break down some of those barriers.
For you putting this together, because I know it was a huge undertaking, what was one or two things that you were surprised about learning through all of this?
You know, the biggest theme that I walked away with is, as much research as our team did to build this town hall, and as much as I thought I understood the education system after trying to be a really good consumer, I was overwhelmed with how complicated it is and how many diverse options there are. I meant it when I said a couple of minutes ago that our education system is clearly not a one size fits all approach. And I candidly walked in thinking that just about everybody went to childcare, and then they went to a K to 12 school, and then they might have gone to college. And, that was the story. And everybody walked out with debt unless they were super lucky to have a scholarship. That ain't the world that we live in. And in some respects, it's super empowering to walk away with that information, because I feel like, and I hope folks that consume this town hall feel like, they can now go navigate a bunch of different options depending upon the needs of themselves or the needs of their children, and try to figure out what makes sense to them. There are so many, just looking at the K through 12 landscape, different options. Obviously, we have the public school system, which is 75% of our population. But within that, we also have a charter school system. We have a private school system. We have a homeschooling system. We have that career and technical education that's being integrated into that K-12 program. And all of those different schooling options are tailored to different types of learning. And if you know all of those options, I would hope, just right as a consumer and person that's passionate about Arizona and the future of our state, that that helps parents and kids to figure out what's the right fit to help them best learn, to help them be successful in the future, because their success is all of our success, because our state grows only if we have the talent to fill all of the really cool jobs we have coming to this state, as we have become such a desert tech kind of bud of information and resources and new businesses, right? Look at TSMC that has made their hub here, building the semiconductors, or Intel and Apple that have thrown so much money into this state. But those companies are only as successful as the applicants that come to fill those jobs. And selfishly, obviously, we want to fill those jobs within our own state instead of having those companies farm in folks from other states.
And I think it's important to hear from people who, like you said, are in the trenches doing this stuff and seeing the impacts that, all of this has to the students and how they can, I guess, better educate our kids to be prepared for everything in the world.
Exactly. And when you talk to the experts we had, and again, we had 16 panelists. When you watch the town hall, you'll see it's spread out into 4 different segments covering all of these different areas that we're talking about. So 4 panelists for each of the segments. But they are so passionate, and there's something to be said too for, after listening to 16 people that are in the trenches, feeling a little more confident that perhaps we have some momentum. We have people who are aware of what's working, also aware of what's not working, and in a way that steps outside of politics, just trying to figure out how do we create that movement to grow our state, to support our students, to support our adults, and then also not have blinders on, again, to the fact that the world is changing. And as quick as it's felt like it's changed over the last 5 or 10 or 15 years with technology, one thing is super clear from that last panel, which is it's changing even faster now. And I'll tease one of the panelists that you will get to hear from if you watch the whole town hall. We brought in a former Google evangelist whose full-time job it was to go dream about the future. And he has some fascinating insights about how he thinks learning will change. And when you tie that and square that with how AI is changing our world, and then you square that with opportunities for students to learn in new ways with a bunch of different schooling opportunities, it's hard to not have a little bit of hope and say there's a path here that feels like Arizona could be on a track that's helping us to improve some of our test scores. But more importantly, because at the end of the day, all that matters is how we set our students up for success, for happiness, for career paths. And a lot of the things we talked about felt like, just as a consumer, we might be in a better place than we were before.
So speaking of hope, for those who will watch this, what change do you hope will come from this? I mean, from people who, are at home, parents watching this, or those who make policies.
Yeah, the whole purpose of this town hall is to make sure that people walk away feeling like they have information to make their own informed decisions. We're not here to tell you where to send your kids or how to educate yourselves or your children. What we are here to do is to make sure that you know what all the options are. You know how to take advantage of either government or nonprofit or private programs that can help with funding so that you don't end up in debt. And that when you're making a choice between schools, that you are able to not just fall into whatever's closest to your house, but choose a school that's right for you or your family because it's the right learning fit.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. We appreciate you taking the time to be here. And if you do want to watch the entire town hall, how long is it going to
The
be?
whole thing is 2 hours long. It's time for popcorn.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of information that they do get through. So if you would like to watch it, it will be on this Sunday on ABC 15 Arizona at what time was that? 10 a.m. And then also on Arizona Spot 61 at 5 o'clock. It'll also be on our YouTube and streamed as well. Thank you again, Chris.
My pleasure.